Hello. Hello. I'm glad that you all could come out tonight to listen to me rattle on with my big mouth. Let me see, where can I begin? First of all, everybody would somehow like to know how I got hurt or injured. The date was July 11th, 1981. I was 14 years of age at that particular point. I was getting ready to leave middle school around 8th grade and enter my freshman year at Broadway High School. But before I could do that, I had to pass my English grade because I had failed 8th grade English. So I was taking summer school at Broadway High School for my 8th grade English so I could enter my freshman year. And it was during a break during this particular time that I had gotten injured. Like I said, the date was July 11th. It's a day which will live in my memory forever. You know, it's not something that you readily forget. I can remember what I had done that day. My father had originally wanted me to go with him down to Orkney Springs to help a friend of ours bale hay. It was not on the farm that I grew up on. It was a friend of ours' farm that needed some assistance. So how I got injured is that I discovered a yellow jacket's nest when I climbed up the loft, and I was lifting the bales of hay up and inadvertently knocked over yellow jacket's nest, which was right behind me. Fight or flight kicked in. I decided to get out of there, and when I did, I tripped over a baler twine on one of the bales and fell 25 feet off the loft and landed on the top of my head, and thereby crushing the 5th and 6th vertebrae in my neck, rendering me paralyzed. So I spent several months in the hospital trying to recover from that. There's multitudes up and down. They had me on a halo vest where they put a halo around your head and all this good stuff, and I can remember excruciating pain, other things going through the hospital. And then I was on to a rehabilitation center, and where I had to keep up with my curriculum, my education with high school, and they taught me you know, primarily how to do everything all over again, like brushing your teeth, washing your hair, washing your face. So I spent many months in a rehab center there. I eventually got home, started back to high school, and it was around my sophomore year that I had to take an elective, and one of the electives had to be art. And fortunately for me, I had an art teacher named Billy Campbell. She would adapt long sticks when we used charcoal. She'd wrap tape around them, and very rudimentally, I slowly began to draw. I think Tom over here remembers a set of sandpipers that I did a long time ago. You remember that? And he still talks about that. I remember you did these sandpipers. Now, I wish I would have had that drawing then. I had no idea whatever happened to that drawing. So I kind of dabbled in art a little bit there, but it wasn't until I got around to summer. I was going through adolescence and also trying to psychologically deal with the fact that I was probably going to be in a wheelchair the rest of my life. So this compounded the situation to where I got very suicidal, didn't want to live anymore. I really didn't have anything to do. I was heavily involved in sports before my accident, and I just couldn't find an outlet to do that. And fortunately, it was one of my aunt suggested that I take up oil painting. And so I started dabbling in oil painting. I had took an 8x10 and started to fiddle with nature, fiddle with paints and everything else like that. But slowly over time, I got bored with oils because they took too long to dry. They were too much of a mess, and you know, you had to mix this color with that color, and to create, you know, all your primary colors and mix them, and that got to be overbearing. She got it. Do you want me to stop now or keep on going? So I had started to do oil paintings. Actually, a friend of mine several years ago brought one of my oil paintings that I had first done like in the 80s, and I was totally blown away. She wanted me to sign it. You want me to sign this? She goes, yes, I want you to sign it. So I signed it for her. I was picking on her, jokingly told her she's never getting it back. She said, oh yeah, I will come and take it away from you, and I'm getting it back. But I had done a metal arc for her, which turned out really, really good. And so slowly I began to move from oils to pastels. And then I got into charcoal, found out that I liked charcoal, but I got tired of having black lips, black nose, black eyebrows, you know, a big football player scar things under your face. So, and charcoal is not what you want to be putting in your mouth, because you'll be going around all the time. Not that I don't do that with pencils now. So eventually I had decided I had doodled with a pencil, the regular old number 2 pencil you're using every day to write with. I decided to start working in that, and I found out that it occupied my time, kept my mind off my problems, kept me from being suicidal, and I could lose myself in a world of nature. Now, one of the key things about it is I grew up as an old country boy. You know, spent many times in the woods with my father. I'd look at trees, look at how shadows fell on things, watch nature. One day I told my father, we were out hunting and sitting in a blind, and we had watched this Carolina wren. I mean, this Carolina wren was up in the tree. He was down in the tree. And he stayed at the same spot for at least a half an hour looking for grubs all over the place. And he was about 40 yards away from me. And I told my father, I said, I'm going home and draw that wren. So I went home and started on it, and 40 hours later, I basically had a little bitty wren with his tail cocked up in the air, and just drew it with pencil. And I'm finding out as I get older, there's a couple of different things in my artwork. I have to wear glasses now, since I'm about that far from my pencil is not long enough. So at various times, I found out a couple of different techniques to use, especially when pencil. I have to, you know, a lot of people ask me if I'm right or left-handed. I'm going like, well, I'm right mouth and left mouth. You know, it all depends upon where the composition falls. Some of the stuff that I have to do is, since my neck can only stretch so far, I've invested in a draftsman's table, which lowers and raises it, which makes it real easier for me a lot easier for me to draw. But in some of the compositions, if I work on something big, such as this bear up here or the deer behind me, I have to flip it upside down, turn it upside down, and work on it upside down and backwards at times, and just to get it, and sometimes sideways. I got the bright idea of doing this one called Crossing Jordan. You know, it's based upon a Bible verse, and I have a lot of spirituality about myself, so I decided to go ahead and do this big one. I got into it, I'm working on it, I got the bridge, I got the 2 deer, they're looking across, I've got the church. I can go to do the mountains, and I found out that I got one little spot that I cannot reach no matter how I tilt the... that's kind of like getting into your artwork, getting it really into it, and find out that you can't do it. So I've had to drop that one down to a lower scale, and it's something that I plan on working on later, but it's going to be really, really difficult trying to do that on a smaller scale. So with that, I fell in love with art. It's how I lose myself. I've won several awards for my artwork. I've won like 2 Printing Industries of Virginia award, and that's stacked up against individuals who draw with their hands. So I'm glad that my artwork, the way that I do it, is unique unto itself, but I'm glad that my art stands on its own merits, because it is, because when people buy the prints that I have or the originals that I have, they say, I love this in my home. It's a conversation piece. It's something that this is what I've heard. I've got one called the Old Anderson Place, which is my great grandfather's home place. And it has some significance to me because it is one of my relationships, but it was actually, I harvested my first deer behind that old house after my accident. So, but many people walk up and tell me that that old house looks like my Aunt Willie's place, or someplace I saw back in West Virginia, or doesn't that look like Aunt Barb's place way off where? And they say it invokes an emotion. And I think the key to every artist, regardless of what we're doing, is that we invoke some type of emotion in people, that they like what we're doing. They admire that we can do something that basically they say we don't have any talent for. And I think a lot of times if we take our time as individuals and human beings, then we find out what gifts we have in life and what we have to offer. So mine happens to be my artwork, and I didn't get here alone. My friends, my family, they all supported me. They all stuck by me. Matter of fact, the reason why I had generated my artwork in the first place is because I had a lot of people coming up to me and ask me, well, how much would you sell me this for? And I would say, well, $25, and this was like many years ago. And people started wanting it more and more, and it was my Uncle David who loaned me the first $500. He said, I don't care when you pay me back to have prints made of my first 2 works. He said, I don't care when you pay me back. I turned around and paid him back in 6 months. And it was like, he goes, my own daughter wouldn't pay me back. He said, you did it in 6 months. So, because I've had my community stand behind me is why I've been so successful. And it's been the people that stood behind me that's made me a success. And my artwork has even made me more of a success. I also wanted to say that I had another art teacher, which was in elementary. She hounded me to death. She said, there is a show up here in Van Wert, Ohio. She said, I would love to submit your work to this show. So I said, okay, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and send you an original, send her the original, and the judges that were voting on it. I won a cash prize of $1,000, which was kind of nice. It's always good when you hear cha-ching. The judges who judged on this piece, and it was called Autumn Breeze, and it's a picture of bucking a doe with the wind blowing, and it's just a real simple piece, and it's got the leaves kind of blowing in a circular pattern, and the judges who judged on it did not recognize that it was done by mouth until after they had judged it. So they were going like, oh, holy cow. So I'm really, really happy that my artwork is going to live on through me. And, you know, many of you guys know that, you know, once it's all over, your stuff will continuously give other people joy as it goes on. So that's about the wrap of this thing. And so everyone's got a talent and everyone should use it. So how's that?
That's great.
All right. You can see how I draw, see the little studio, hear me talk a little bit. Some of it's a recap of some of the stuff that I've said. So it's warming up. Right now I'm in an apartment, but my ultimate goal is to have a studio and a garage, and then do open houses for the community to come in and look at my original artwork and everything else. So this is the apartment me and my wife lived in, and we recently got married. I have to tell you that story afterwards.
Okay, I've got this turned up as loud as I can, but
Now, the thing I'll go back and just to kind of give you some detail. You remember seeing the lighthouse in there? I had a friend. I worked out in the public for almost 15 years, and my health kind of deteriorated after that. So you know, I gave up and went full time to artwork. Just by doing that. But a friend of mine, she loves lighthouses. So I ended up doing 1 lighthouses, and then I ended up doing 5 lighthouses. And actually her son, Albie, was, he had suffered from, well, not suffered, but he was born with MR. And so after he had since passed away, and I dedicated all the lighthouses to her son. And if you go into my website, you could see that. The thing about the butterfly that you all seen, that was called New Life in the Garden, which I no longer have any more of those prints. I printed up to 300 of them. One day I was watching a butterfly across my mother's yard. Watched it fly on a lilac bush, went inside to start to draw it, and it turned out to be one of the popular ones. So the birds that I had in there, especially the chickadee. You probably didn't see the wren, but you saw the chickadee. That is a set of 4 birds. I had a wren, a chickadee, a cardinal, and a sparrow. And what it is once you put them all together, they fit on the same limb if you organize them straight. And actually, Martha Jefferson's hospital had purchased all 4 of them and put them in their recovery rooms, which was kind of nice. The thing about the mountain lion, you can see the mountain lion standing on a rock. Normally, I've studied a lot about nature, and actually mountain lions have 4 toes on the front. But if I made 4 toes on the front of the mountain lion, it would make his feet look too big, so I put 3. So those are kind of little secrets. And you can also, if you'd like to hear this video more closer up, it's on YouTube, so you all can just type in my name and it should come up, and it'll play louder for you. Yeah. So
how much of this is done from memory?
How
much from pictures or what?
Some of it is all out of my head.
That's what I wondered.
I saw a Christmas card one time that had kind of like a church on it with the skaters on the pond. You see the skaters, and I thought that the church was really, really nice, so I just kind of drew a church. It's supposed to represent a Mennonite family because it's a horse and buggy. But actually, basically, my uncle's wife is a Mennonite, and she said, "That church is too elaborate for a Mennonite display. It's got a steeple on it." I go, "Well, who's going to know that?" So, actually, had drawn it from memory. I would say, on an average, 75% of it is my own work. Now, the bear actually up here, I looked and looked and looked and looked for a bear, because I don't want to go out in the middle of the woods and become Meals on Wheels somewhere of studying a bear. So, I've done a lot of internet searches. The internet searches gives me ideas. Actually, the bear came up in like just a black silhouette. And I like the black silhouette of how the bear was posed. And then I incorporated everything around the bear itself. So I've also looked at tattoo artists, how some tattoo artists do some things. So some of them deal in black and white, and I actually could say I could probably, if I could be a tattoo artist, I probably would. But I'd sneeze and mess up the whole. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. How are we going to erase this one? Normally, I don't erase on a lot of stuff, because if you erase something on a picture, it will show up on a print. So I either try to do like the dog, cover it up in the yard someplace so nobody's going to find it, or sometimes I've gotten through. I like cats, but I hate cats, especially house cats. I was working on this one drawing, a big panoramic. I called it my father's house. Had a cabin, deer jumping, geese flying, canoe on the side, trout jumping up out of the water, scenes in the background, a little walk step going up to the cabin, and I was completed with it 50%, and we had a cat. She just jumped up and walked right across the paper with her muddy feet one day. So I started it again and, tried to keep the cat out of the room, 75% done with the next drawing that I'd done. And basically, I didn't know she was down on the floor. She hopped up on the thing, and I went to smack her away. Claw marks went right straight down through the middle of it. So, round 3, I shut and locked the door. And the cat was going, meow, meow. I'm sorry, you're not coming in. So until I'm finished with this. So I finished it, and, sometimes we as artists think sometimes our first version is better than all the rest. And I've been there before. Because I was going like the first version was better, the deer was better, the geese were better and all that stuff. So that's some of the little background on me. If anybody's got any questions, let it fly. Yes, ma'am.
A technical question.
Technical question.
Yeah. What do you do for the paper not to yellow and to preserve the graphite from smearing?
Well, normally some artists will use like rice paper to keep it from smearing. The thing about me is that I really don't touch the page. I can switch it, because I'm using my hand, and as you noticed, I'm doing like a side-to-side motion a lot of times, so I try not to touch the page. Every now and then I've made a mistake and just smeared it, and then, I've got an eraser which will pretty much take it out a little bit. But, using graphite, there's always a risk of smearing it. To some points, I've finally learned that, like on the deer behind me, to make a gentle sweep of looking like snow and shadow, I use just a fine horsehair paintbrush and just go back and forth with it and just make it look like it's just like fading out into the distance. So I've actually learned that little technique with graphite. So it's a little bit tricky with graphite sometimes, but it's it's better than charcoal.
You put a fixative of some kind on it?
Yeah, when I'm finished with it, I got an adhesive that I use, and I'll spray it twice to protect it from getting smeared. That's not always 100%. I've gone from I've also learned that if I used to use a thinner page, I believe it's like 75 pounds. Nowadays I'm using like 95 to 100 pounds because it's a more durable paper and it works a lot easier with graphite. So I've actually moved up from that point. I use a smooth type of paper. Yet I also had to learn to how much pressure that I could apply down to make something lighter or make something heavier. And I've also learned that if you're trying to make something heavy, you have to make it darker. But there's a trick to it. You don't go too far on the heavy, because if you go too far on the heavy, you're gonna go ruin it. It's gonna look not realistic enough. So you try to go from really, really light, and then if it doesn't look like, go a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and a little bit more, and then don't touch it. Because if you do it a little bit more, it's done going too far.
Do you have to worry about UV light?
UV light. What usually a lot of times when I'll finish up, from my studio, I have that big light across the top of me, which I don't think it's not a UV light, but it's kind of like a natural light. And then what I've done is I spray it, and then to protect the piece, I put it behind UV glass. And anybody who purchases like original of mine or a print of mine, I say, always keep it away from the light. Keep it away. If you're going to put it in someplace, make sure the light doesn't shine on it, unless you have UVA glass, and that's not always 100% guarantee. I just say keep it in the back, keep it somewhere where you can enjoy it, but it doesn't get a whole lot of sunlight. Yes, sir.
You work with different hardnesses of lead.
I only work with a number 2 pencil. That's exactly what I work with. I don't have to worry about B2, B4, B6. I just work with number and one on number 2.
So you've got bushel baskets full of sharp pencils.
Yeah, and chewed up pencils at the end of it. Yeah, it looks like a beaver. And I keep a trash can very close because I'm all the time going with the paint that goes around the pencil. So I've tried using like rubber over the pencil, but I find out that it gives too much. It doesn't allow me to hold down and get tight. So
In your drawings, you don't have any line marks, like when I'm heavy-handed normally when I draw something.
mhm.
In your drawings, you don't have that problem because you go layers.
Well, what I do is I try to trace an outline. You saw it in the bird that I was working on, the leaves. I kind of do like a little sketch out if I know where I'm going, but I kind of put a real light mark on where I want the piece to go. And if it looks okay, then I'll go over to heavier, and then slowly, gradually work it around so where it looks like I haven't, like a leaf, for instance. A leaf comes out and it gets very dark at the end, and it kind of, when it circles around, it also has that kind of like dark on the inside of it, and it comes back out light. So I have to kind of form that around so it looks like it's bending over, like a dry leaf. So. Mm-hmm. So I found out that the paintbrush really helps with a lot of blending. Because blending sticks for me would just disintegrate my mouth, and I would be doing with paper. So I found out a paintbrush is better for me for blending. And I'm also, a lot of the key points about my artwork is you will notice that I go back from side to side. It's hard for me to go up and down like this. But on fur, I tend to try to wiggle and move and make it look like fur. Like on a deer, on a bear, or I use little bee strokes like this, and I'll turn the paper way the fur's supposed to go on, like a bear or something. Any other questions?
Have you tried any other fancy colors like Picasso that had a blue period?
This is your last question, Bruce.
All right.
I was trying to think of something really.
I haven't gone through my rose period yet or my blue period yet. There are times when sometimes I'll let. I don't go every day working on a piece unless I got a commission that I'm working on that I know I need to get done in a certain deadline. Sometimes, I think that we as artists have to be inspired. And when we're inspired, we can really do something that's really creative for us. So I think I have those type of periods.
We all can identify with that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you can see how much the group has enjoyed your artwork and your talent, and now your personal character and your personal life, your personal stories. So we're looking forward to getting to know you better as you join us at shows. And he brought the carrot cake tonight. I put his name in the box, so he's got all the equal opportunities as everybody else. But thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome.
We really appreciate it.
Can I do one more thing?
Yes, you can. And thank you to Mary Ann for doing such a nice write-up.
Thank you very much. I forgot to tell you, when I was in the rehabilitation center, that's where I met my wife. And we had finally gotten back together after 30-some years, so we've known each other. We tell her, how long have you known each other? 30, 35 years? People look at us like, did you grow up together? No, she lived in Buffalo, I lived down in Virginia. How did you do that? Long way. So, thank you all very much. Unhook me.
All right.
Okay.